obviously we're caught right now in the storm of what is crypto in a bear market. And this is our first bear market as a company, and it's my second bear market as an investor. But the first bear market I left, I was like most people, when it got real tough like this, I just said, I'll look at crypto again in the future if it ever survives. Now I know it's going to survive. Where do you see Playable?
Yeah, I think, the really interesting thing about what you've put together here is that if it was just a pure crypto play, I would have never been interested.
Hi guys, how you going? It's the old bull here, and I have our CEO, Michael Hanlon, with us. And we are going to have a chat, just a fireside talk with a couple of beers is what we'd like to be doing. But unfortunately...
It's too hot for a fire here in summer.
Mickey's still in Australia, so it's summer over there. And I'm actually up in Georgia at the moment. So let's start with a bit of your background.
I think it's important to go back before then, because that's sort of maybe chapter 3 in the journey. I'm a farmer's son, as is my wife, actually, a farmer's daughter. So our values and our business approach often connects back to those original or founding values that you get being part of a small community. Both myself and my wife, we're in communities of less than 500 people. And I think there's a couple of things that come from that. And certainly having sort of worked all around the world and places, done business in places like China and Tokyo and Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, of course here in Australia. What I've noticed, my approach is that I still approach everyone I work with that same sort of mindset. There's no anonymity to me. One knows you when you come from a small country town. That's how it is. And certainly our parents, my siblings, everyone, we associate with probably has a similar mindset. And I think, they're really important values, and they've sort of held me in good stead in business. And business doesn't always allow you to, be 100% true to your values, because things happen, as you know. People don't pay you sometimes, and then you can't pay someone else. And, you got to weave your way through those types of challenges in business, and still maintain, what are your core values. And I think for me, those core values are very much that, integrity and what I say is what I do. Some of my best buddies are still the guys that I went to school with. I've been lucky enough to work for large international corporations, and right down to, basically small one-man bands or two-man bands, as we ended up. Very small businesses. Yeah, absolutely. So, I've sort of been lucky to have that experience of working through those spaces and seeing, the differences in the way things are approached, and, the resources that you have or don't have, and, how you get things done. But in my heart, I guess, like you, I'm an entrepreneur, and, that's what I've been surrounded by all my life. And even when I worked for others, whether they be, less senior roles or C-suite style roles and executive leadership team style roles, I still had that same sort of mindset around everything I've done. I take that same frugality into my life every day. I still hate waste. I still hate to see things done unnecessarily. I still hate to see, no matter the size of the organisation, money be spent on things that are unnecessary. Sometimes when I've had pretty healthy expense accounts to spend every month, I've had bosses come to me in the past and say, you've got $5,000 a month to spend and you're only spending $500 of it. I didn't see the point of spending $5,000 if I didn't need to. So I think that's me in a nutshell. We met, I guess, when I was around about 24. So more than 30 years ago. It was pretty interesting because I was thinking about this before our chat today. I'd come out of uni with an economics and finance degree. I got a job in financial planning. It was one of my first my first jobs, and I was thinking about some of the things that happened in that job and some of the things that drove me to, I guess, go into my own business at the ripe old age of 24 and then meet you and bring you into that. And, one of the defining moments in that particular job was, again, a real values question. I went into this job thinking that I was going to be a financial planner. In reality, I was an insurance salesman. So that's what the job turned out to be.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I know when we met, I was working for a company in Melbourne, and Michael had the franchise for Perth for that company. And the owner of the company sent me over to help Michael out, because Michael, coming from an accounting background, his business major was in accounting, and he had the business sense, but he didn't have the sales ability to convert people to an idea and direct sales. This company you'd bought into was a hard one. I don't think when you bought into that, you realise what you're getting into there either. But this is the lovely thing of experience. And Michael and I were talking just the other day about, we heard that someone looking at doing business with was in their 20s, and when you're 50, you look back at 20s and you realise just how young you were. Just how little we knew, and yet at the time you feel like you know a lot. What's that old saying? Yep. Hire an 18-year-old quickly before they forget everything.
You don't ever want to come across as that old know-it-all, boomer, as we call them here in Australia, type of guy. And that's the hard part about transitioning your knowledge to people, and is that it's not about saying I know better. It's about saying, been down this path before and here's what happened. Let's talk about whether that's possible here, or
it can happen again.
If you think that's not going to happen, how are we going to avoid that happening? That's sort of the way you have to have those conversations, because otherwise I think you do end up in that space where you just go, oh no, that's stupid, that won't work, and you don't want to be that person.
Yeah, you don't want to become a grumpy old man that just says no to everything. You don't want to get caught in being an old man, but you don't want to forget the lessons you learned on the way either. And when you're looking at a whole young team and they've burned through $3 or $4 million and they're now out of money. And I was just saying to Jet and Amanda yesterday that they had a similar amount of money that we had. And, we've still got a lot of ours and they've got none of theirs. So same time periods, they started in February too, same as us, January, I think, just a month before us. So we started in November, but so that experience adds up.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you don't want to let fear stop you doing anything, but you do want to let knowledge stop you. If there's anything,
that's a good point.
If anything that you should listen to, it's that knowledge and experience. Because fear is always there. I mean, in this particular industry, it's rife, isn't it? When you see the likes of the SPFs falling over, you can understand why fear would be a factor, and it's present in everyone's mind. And I think for us, the path we need to walk is just for people to really understand that this is authentic.
I think when you look at crypto as a whole, like one of the biggest complaints I get about crypto from people is, it's all a con. And they wipe the whole industry off because of some bad actors.
Of course.
And any industry, when .com started, what did we hear all the time? Amazon's just a con. This is just a con. Pets.com, just a con. And what people mean is it's growing quickly, can't be real. So they misdiagnose what's actually going on. And I think what we've done, what captured my attention, was my whole life, from the very first business that you and I started together, right through, so just giving everyone a background on Michael and I got turned over to help Michael do his selling with his business. And when I was there, Michael made me an offer to come and work with him full time. So he seemed all right about it. But the short end of the stick is that Michael realised very quickly I had a set of skills that he didn't have and didn't want to spend the time learning. And so by giving me part of the business, he allowed himself to concentrate on what his skill set was really good at. And I was able to do the things and run the sales team, because that's my expertise, is running sales teams. And it was back then, and I've morphed that more towards marketing now. But when this happened with Playable, my very first thought was, who do I need to run the business side? Because I know that my expertise is not business. My expertise is the people side. I know how to talk with people and communicate ideas and talk about what could happen. And your expertise is how to make it happen. And even though we haven't worked together for 30 years, like since that business, and we should explain that business was successful, we did quite well with that, right up to the day where the finance company rang us and just said, we're not going to finance any more of your deals. And literally we got 1 day's notice. Actually, was it a week's notice or something?
Yeah.
They weren't going to, and we just literally got shut down from a phone call.
Yes.
So we went our separate ways, but you went off and pursued a corporate ideal. And I went off on the entrepreneurial small business ideal. I was always trying to hit the ball out of the park with a big idea. You were grinding your way to the top of the corporate ladder, learning the way to run a business and do it properly. And so when this happened, when we started talking about the potential of hitting the ball out of the park with Playable, and we realised that it was an actual real thing, I rang Michael and said, mate, it's time for us to come back into the same pen together. And I need your help.
I worked for one of the largest corporations in the world, and we started getting into the budget discussion, and the then CEO actually went and made himself a coffee, because he wasn't the CEO because of his finance skills. He was the CEO because he was charismatic and he was extremely well liked and was a great guy. But he had zero interest in the numbers, and he would leave that to the finance guys. So large corporations do that. They'll position people who are passionate about that space, and that's what they do well, and they can afford to, you know. Whereas when you're in a small business, you end up having to try and wear all those hats, and, you know, we all know how that pans out. Some people do it well, but some people fail in, you know. I was talking to my wife about a business that failed here recently after some government funding, and great concept, a concept of managing swimming pools through an aggregated energy pool and using that energy pool to shed load when there was load demand, and then manage according to when the energy market was at its most cost effective. And, you know, they failed, I guess, about a year in. I was one of their customers. They failed about a year in, and I was talking to a buddy at work about it the other day, and I said, look, they didn't fail because of the concept. I mean, the concept was so strong that the Australian government gave them $2.5 million because they could see that this was an energy-saving initiative. They failed because when they came to sell me this plan, they didn't sell it to me. I just bought it because they were so bad at explaining what their offer was and what their product was. Now, no surprise, that company was started by a brilliant engineer who was all over the tech and remote monitoring and apps and all the stuff that is really sexy at a technical level. But if you can't translate that into a sales conversation and a compelling buying proposition, you're going to fail, which they did. So, yeah, it's to get a beautiful orchestral piece together, there's a lot of instruments that are being played, you know. So I think,
and some of those instruments don't sound good on their own.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think in that sense, you've always had that mindset that surround yourself with people who do things well, and work out what those people do well, allow them to do that. Don't tie them up in stuff that they don't enjoy or that they can't do well. And that's a great mindset to have when you're growing a business, because you need everyone to give you everything they've got in terms of their full capabilities, you know.
Obviously, we're caught right now in the storm of what is crypto in a bear market. And this is our first bear market as a company, and it's my second bear market as an investor. But the first bear market I left, I was like most people, when it got real tough like this, I just said, I'll look at crypto again in the future if it ever survives. Now I know it's going to survive. Where do you see Playable?
Yeah, I think, you know, the really interesting thing about what you've put together here is that if it was just a pure crypto play, I would have never been interested, because I think there's the crypto plays that are legitimate are few and far between. of course, the granddaddy Bitcoin and, the Ethereums, all these regarded coins have a lot of integral value and they have a connection to ecosystems where they have a plan and outcome. But, all this other stuff that's come
There's
and
a lot of
gone
money
and will
grabbing
continue
going
to come
on.
and go. Yeah, it's just purely that. It's just purely, for want of a better word, a scam. So there's so much of that in the space. What I think, you've been able to create here is a niche within the space. And it's a niche that if you have the capabilities of putting both parts of the equation together, can be phenomenally successful.
We did 18 months of projected revenue in 3 weeks. So I mean, we still haven't caught up to today. We still haven't caught up to our projections that you and I did at the beginning.
Yeah,
we haven't caught up
the
to them
plan
yet.
was.
Yeah, so we're so far ahead of what we thought we'd be because we
absolutely.
caught that tail end of the bull run.
So I don't think that's just about the bull market. I think it's about the fact that, like me, the combination of the gaming community and crypto resonates with a lot of people. They see it as a very different beast to launching John Coin.
A coin, yep.
Because John Coin's just nothing,
Yeah, well, we're trying to solve that age-old. I mean, I'm a gamer by heart, and I laugh. Mickey and I have laughed together about this. The fact that we've actually put together a gaming company when Mickey has said to me multiple times in my life over the last 30 years, what are you doing spending your time doing that, But yeah, it's like there is a reason for everyone in the village. And I think that's like what we're building with Playable Games is we've been very community focused. And one of the comments we get all the time is, I love being part of this community. Other communities aren't anything like what you guys are. You're transparent and you're upfront and you care about what we think. But yeah, it's like there is a reason for everyone in the village. And I think that's like what we're building with Playable Games is we've been very community focused. And one of the comments we get all the time is, I love being part of this community. Other communities aren't anything like what you guys are. You're transparent and you're upfront and you care about what we think. And I think, as I said, that's coming from our basic stance that we are a village and we're building a village. And a village is made up of different people. They're not all like me and they're not all like you.
Yep.
And, everyone's got a part to play.
Oh, and look, at a personal level, that's rewarding, it's connecting, it's that sense of being part of something. And at a commercial level, it's actually really smart because if everyone else is treating their communities with disdain,
which they do.
Well, yeah, which they do. Well, you don't have to do much to be seen as different. All you got to do is just be decent.
Yeah. What are we doing now? How is that going to affect them? And that comes when we have to let people go. It comes when we have to hire people. It comes when we're rewarding people. It comes when we're disciplining people. Everything comes from how would it feel to be them? And are we communicating effectively and clearly? And are we giving them what they need? And that's I think that it's rare in this space.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Look,
we're not seeing it very often.
And with the community of 5,000, you're never going to satisfy everyone. With a community of 100,000, which it'll be in a few years, there's always going to be 100 or more that are going to be unhappy for some reason. But you've got to look at the greater good. You've got to look at what you're doing is the best solution. You've got to have belief and forge forward.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that you are busy, and I just wanted the community to be able to get a bit more insight into who you are, because I know your very background and all the stuff you do is behind the scenes, and that goes obviously without accolade, but not that you're the sort of guy that looks for that, but it's I think it's really helpful for them to know that the guy who's steering the ship actually knows making sure the ship doesn't sink might be a better term, actually knows what he's talking about and can be relied on.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty excited, and I know you're humbled by the fact that there's so many people on that ship.
Yeah.
You know, it's fantastic to see that Discord community and obviously node owners and people who've bought into the coin and are eagerly waiting for the games to just continue to grow. You know, that's awesome. And, you know, that gives you a confidence as well that you know, what we're doing is heading in the right direction.